We're going to start in about 30 seconds here.
Exactly.
You guys stood up just out of respect, didn't you?
We're talking about voters' assembly at church, and how interesting it was.
I'll tell you, there's an old joke about Luther.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a Lutheran and
There you go.
Lutherans don't?
Not nice.
Especially the Missouri Synod.
Yeah, see, we're the worst.
Okay. We're going to get started. We will call to order the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners study session for Wednesday, June 28th. We could rise, and Ron will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please, Bonnie.
Mayor?
Here.
Gorfulet? Here. Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Klaus?
Here.
Johnson? Lathrop?
Here.
Crawford?
Here. At this point, we have our first chance for public comment. Will you read the rules, please, Bonnie?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak. Public comment will be solicited during the two public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment will generally be received at any time during the meeting regarding a specific topic currently under discussion by the board. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson.
Thank you. At this point, we have our first chance for public comment. If anybody would like to make public comment, you can come up and state your name and address. Anybody? Don't be afraid. Okay. Speak right into the microphone. Go ahead.
I didn't know if I had to be called
No,
upon.
go ahead.
My name is Jennifer Isbell, and my address is 585 Spring Hill Road in Traverse City. And I am the publisher and editor of Pet Friends Magazine. I'm a pet owner, a resident of Grand Traverse County, and also a precinct delegate in Garfield Township in Precinct 6. I am here today to bring up 3 issues. Number 1, the taxpayers of Grand Traverse County deserve a fully funded and fully staffed animal control department, a permanent solution instead of a temporary patch to the problem. Health Director Wendy True even said in a recent Traverse City Ticker interview that, quote, one part-time animal control officer is not enough dedicated staff time for this program. Number 2, funding. There are a lot of funding options that haven't been explored yet in the 2 years during which the county could have solve this animal control issue. Just a few ideas to think about include fines for owners of stray dogs, fundraisers, a rabies clinic and pet fair like you've done in the past to get more animals licensed, grant writing, a millage, or putting funds into the animal control division from the health department budget or general fund. In looking through your budget myself, I believe that there are funds available. I just think there needs to be a better prioritization of how these funds are used, and hopefully an understanding of how important animal control services are to the county. Number 3, and my most important issue tonight, I ask for the commissioners to approve the formation of an animal control advisory committee. Up until today, I don't believe the county has demonstrated that they have the ambition to solve this problem on their own or the resources. An advisory committee can look into all facets of the issue and make recommendations on how to offer the proper services that we need. In doing research about a year ago, when I was writing up a millage proposal before I came up against the Headley Amendment, I came up with some notes regarding this sort of advisory committee. I have some notes from that I can leave you today if you're interested in looking at that. Do I give it to the clerk?
You can, I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she'll make sure that we get it.
Okay. I wanted to just make this short and sweet, and thank you for your time. I appreciate your willingness to address this issue finally, especially as a separate topic, and give it the serious consideration that it deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to make public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Ed Hickey. I was the animal control officer here for Grand Traverse County for 20 years. The reason I came tonight, as I understood this was a study session, I'm here just for anything I can do to help. If you want any questions, I think I have more knowledge than anybody in this room on animal control. I was a manager for 15 and an officer for 5. So if there's any questions that you'd like to know about animal control's history, I'm here and I'm available.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Wilgenhoff at 1626 East Blairtown Hall Road in Mayfield. And I want to show support for the animal control and ask that the commission really look on finding funding to have some more employment there. I've had to utilize animal control many times in the last years, and Mr. Hickey dealt with him and has always been a success, and I can't imagine our community without animal control and help with it. And I know a part-time position does not do it. I was involved with when they rescued a couple of the horses, Mr. Wiggles and Rusty, and this is Mr. Wiggles today. And if it wasn't for Deb Zarafa and the animal control, he wouldn't be living today in my home and doing well. I don't see it getting better if we don't find some funding and get some help in our community for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Darcy Pickren. I live at 916 Pine Street. I'm in the field behind Thirlby Field, the empty field that is turned into a dog park. And I've called a number of times trying to let the animal control know that there are many dogs not on leashes. So it's my position tonight, the reason I'm here is because I'm all in favor of this study to look at more hours for animal control so that they can help in the city with the fact that I understand right now we have to call the city police and utilize their services if we have a problem with animals running free or stray dogs or bites and that sort of thing. Anyway, so I'm here to urge you to please take a very serious look at this and add more hours and more staff to the animal control in the city and in the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Karen Klump, and I'm at 3634 Emily Lane in Traverse City. And I, too, am here to support the increased funding of animal control and the reinstatement of, at a minimum, a full-time animal control person. But even when we were fully staffed, I was a volunteer for 10 years at the Cherryland Humane Society and saw firsthand what happens when dogs are left abandoned. I've found a dog on a Saturday afternoon in 20 below weather, and there was nowhere then to store the dog. I had to keep the dog in my house, and my mom, luckily, I come from an animal-loving family, was able to take mine because it was a pit bull, and I just wasn't sure and didn't want to put any of the animals at risk. I too witnessed Ed Hickey working wonderfully on a daily basis with the Cherryland Humane Society with strays and bringing them in there. I worked with him personally when I was bitten by a dog. That was a fear bite, and it was just a great program, and I think that this community is full of animal lovers, many, many people willing to pay for licensing, willing to help step in any of the many different solutions that we can find. I think pulling this was irresponsible, and I think it was unnecessary when we have such a generous community that is very animal loving, and I'm willing to help in anything I can.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Nobody at this time. Okay, so we're going to close the first public comment. We do have some people that have prepared some information for us. Wendy? So I want them to be able to let us know what's going on in animal control right now. And how did we get to this spot? I guess I can fill that part in, or Tom, can you fill us in on what happened to get to the spot where we are right now, animal control-wise?
Well, basically,
History.
from a budgetary perspective, we had to make cuts of around 4.6%. We looked at the non-mandated programs first. This was one of them, and so we looked as a compromise and cut some staff, but left some on. And we also, just for everyone's edification, and this lady in front is, we had been doing the work of the city, which had its own animal control ordinance, and we asked them to, implement processes to take care of their own animal control issues, and we would take those outside. So we divided the responsibility too.
So it was through a budget resolution, the staff for animal control was eliminated in 2016?
2016.
In the 16 budget.
Yep.
Last October, I believe we hired one part-time animal control officer. But what has been happening since then?
What's that?
Yes.
Well, so the program...
Right into the microphone, sorry.
Sorry.
It's hard to hear. Thank you.
Wendy Chert, Health Officer, Grand Traverse County Health Department, and
Dan Thorell, Environmental Health Director, Grand Traverse County Health Department.
Okay.
so animal control sits under the Environmental Health Division. So just big picture, Health Department has 5 divisions, environmental health is one of them. We have 35 programs. Animal control is one of those 35. And it's one of, I think, 9 in environmental health, just to kind of give you an idea of scope. So initially, all the funding was eliminated, and then at some point, I think, we realized there was still dog license fees.
She's hard to hear, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Try to
Sorry.
get the microphone as
All right.
close as you can. Thank you.
So once we found out that we were basically kind of charged with bringing back animal control with the dog license fees, we looked at, as many ways that we could, but it's not that much money. And you do have to have certain core things. You have to have vehicles to drive and gas and a computer and certain things like that. And the program had been down for about 8 months, and so kind of bringing all that back. So hired a part-time. We, at the same time, attempted to get a seasonal part-time animal control specialist. When we looked at the budget, those were the 2 positions we figured we could, budget-wise, afford. We weren't able. We went through 2 different rounds of interviews and multiple offers, and we weren't able to get anybody in that part-time position. So because we were getting to the colder winter months, we decided to wait until the spring when it gets busy again. And so this year we've increased. We're doing a summer pilot because we have carryover funds from the dog license, but those are one-time funds, so it's not something we can count on every year. We're doing a pilot where we increase the animal control officer's hours to full-time for about 6 months, and then also the seasonal person can only work a max of 24 weeks, and so we have that person on additional 25 to 30 hours.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
Okay.
The trucks are functioning. We've had to put some money into getting them back working. We recently, Deb primarily wrote a 2% grant to try and get a new truck for animal control. Heidi Sheppy from the Treasurer's Office has submitted one last year, and that wasn't funded. So we're hopeful maybe they'll fund it. We're still using Cherryland Humane Society for the sheltering.
Okay. What questions do we have for Wendy about what's going on with animal control?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of data that we gave to you, and we did give you 2 more updated tables. The first one, Deb put together the top one that's not green. That's the best way I can describe it.
Oh, this one.
And that should replace the second page, I think, in your packet about the complaints. The previous one that said 187, she actually was able to go back through. She finally had time, was able to go back through this week, and she's responded to 900 calls in 2017.
Okay.
And then the second one is a sheet we maybe can talk about later, which looks at potential revenue if we were able to get increased compliance with licensing. Right now, only about 22% of our dogs estimated are licensed in our county. So if we even had 50%, we could have much more funding. But to get to that number, it takes staff and time to do that too. So we don't, I will say this, staffing-wise at the health department, we don't really have any other similar positions that we can leverage. Like, you know, if there's cuts in a program that involves nursing staff, we would have other nurses that potentially we could leverage if needed, or similar with sanitarians, but there's no other positions that have the kind of background that animal control has.
So nobody can like step in to help if they're
No.
extra busy or anything? Okay.
No.
Okay. Tom?
Do all the veterinarians in the county have the ability to sell the dog licenses?
I believe so, but the licenses actually are under Heidi's purview.
We do have contracts with most of the veterinarians. Actually, Banfield, which is one of the bigger, backed out last year.
That's the one in Pet Supplies?
Pet Supply, and a couple of the smaller outlyings don't, but most of them we do have contracts with.
Dan?
What precipitated this meeting? Was there a bunch of events where we had animal problems that weren't addressed? And, you know, usually there's something that, why are we having this meeting?
I
Is
can
there
answer
something
that.
big that came up?
Cheryl
Sure.
sort of requested it
Yeah.
initially. so
I
yeah.
had requested the study session, Dan, because I had gotten calls and emails and concerns from a number of people in the community who were concerned about a significant increase in dog bites, for one. There have been some pretty serious dog attacks of people recently. And the time that it takes to respond to those dog bite situations pretty much means that there's no time left for the part-time animal control officer to, you know, deal with all of the other, you know, I mean, if you looked at these call logs, there's dozens of calls coming in every day about abandoned animals, hurt animals, animals that are, you know, staked outside with no water, their ribs are showing, you know, whatever. So I'm an animal lover. I'm you know, a person who thinks that animals fall within the class of vulnerable members of our society, and our task is to protect the vulnerable members of our society. And so I'm concerned when I see that we had 2 full-time animal control people who worked Monday through Friday, okay? They were eliminated when the budget was misunderstood as being in the hole, when it really wasn't in the hole. When it was brought back, we got a half person. How does a half person do the job of 2 full people? And what do we do about animals that are abandoned Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, holidays? I'm concerned about that. You know, when the commercials come on TV and they show the dog, I gotta change the channel. I can't watch that stuff, okay? I mean, this stuff breaks my heart, okay? And if it doesn't break yours, shame on you, okay? So I met with the animal control officer, and she showed me pictures from animals that she's had to deal with this year. It would break your heart, okay? And she's trying to deal with it 25 hours a week with a truck that's a piece of crap. It's an embarrassment to the county, with a budget that's a joke, okay? So yeah, I called for a meeting because we need to do something about this. This is a serious problem. And we need to come up with a serious solution. And I love the idea of an advisory committee. I think that's brilliant. Why not tap into people who love and care about animals and are willing to do the legwork for us and come and report to us, right? I'd like to propose to this board that we pass an ordinance making it a civil infraction if you don't have a dog license. If we had an ordinance that said you're going to pay $50 fine if you don't have a dog license, don't you think you're going to pay $10 to get your dog license rather than pay $50 if you don't have a dog license? I'll tell you right now, I don't have a dog license. I will if...
$50.
There you go. I'm just saying, okay? And there's
Heidi the treasurer's right here.
and there's about 75% of the dog owners in the county that don't have dog licenses, and that's why we can't pay for an animal control program.
Exactly.
So let's get it together and do the right thing. End of
Dan.
speech.
I remember, I've had pets all my life, grew up in 4-H, had dogs. Everyone knows I'm a dog lover. In fact, so many times that I've picked up dogs, obviously stray dogs, lost dogs, put them in my car. And I remember we had two full-time animal control people. It was on a weekend, didn't help me a bit.
That's why I said we need more than that.
No. I mean, we had 2 full-time people.
I know that.
And
We need more than that, Dan. You can't, full-time can't be Monday through Friday when you're talking animal control.
So my point is that even when we did fully fund the department, weekends and holidays were still not covered.
Well, we need to figure
So
that out.
what happens right now when our animal control officers are not on duty or not available? And there's a significant situation with an animal on, when they're not around, what happens? Tell us, I'm asking. We want to know, how does this work? Okay, how
Well, I
does
will
this
tell
happen?
you
This is
what
our animal
happens.
control officer.
My name is Deb Zarafa. I've been on board now since October of last year. I can assure you that I've worked a lot more than 25 hours a week. My phone for the first 6 months at least went from the animal control line right to my hip. And so when there were calls that came in about dogs neglected, dog bites, dog aggression, issues like that, then I picked them up and I facilitated those calls during that time. My focus is animal welfare, and just like Cheryl, animals don't have a voice in this community. They are sentient beings that have feelings and needs just like we have, and we have let them down. And we need to not let them down anymore, and I just implore you to not only have animal control officers, but a management team that's on board full-time. We need a full-time management system. Wendy and Dan have done a tremendous job with the limited hours that they can contribute to it. It's just simply not enough. We have complex situations with law enforcement, with Traverse City police officers. I've dealt very intimately with that segment. Prosecuting attorneys, our laws are being violated on a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour basis. We can have all the laws on the books, and we don't have enforcement. We can't enforce them, and that's why we don't have the revenue. I've been talking about revenue stream for a couple of years now with some of our elected officials, and they've been wanting to do that. But to get back to the animals on the weekends, the animals after hours, right now I have really been filling in and just stepping up to that. But we do need to have somebody on call. I don't know how that's funded. It hasn't been funded in the past. It's been me, myself, and my crew. and because I believe it is that important that we do something for these animals that haven't had anybody go to bat for them. So, yeah, Jamie, the new gal, is on Saturdays now, and she's able to really, roll up her sleeves and do whatever she can on Saturdays. She's in from 10 to 6, so that's going to cover a significant amount of territory during that particular time. I'm at her disposal during those hours. We've actually had frequent phone calls on Saturday last weekend, so we can bounce things off of each other in that respect.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Deb, have you had an opportunity to look at a budget as far as, what you think it might take for this to work?
Well, I think the current budget, I don't know if you know that I've worked for practically a volunteer position, if you look at the numbers that I make. And I just, with my background and the ability to be able to facilitate complex issues with police and prosecutors has been a tremendous asset to the community. And I don't think you can just throw anybody in that capacity. So that's been a real win-win, with law enforcement and prosecutors. We've actually, made those complex issues minor in comparison. Animals have been taken out of the Cherryland in a significant shorter period of time. Prior to my coming on board, we had some animals languishing for 6 months in Cherryland, and unfortunately the Cherryland director and staff got saddled with the burden of that type of animal issue for a very long, lengthy period of time. Not being an attorney, but being knowledge of the legal profession, because that was my profession for about 26 years, being able to facilitate negotiations between sides without being an attorney has actually been incredibly helpful.
But to speak directly to a budget, for example, it's my understanding that Cherryland Humane Society, we have a contract with them to take in animals, but it isn't necessarily, it may need to be renegotiated to the extent that we might actually come out a little better under different terms.
Well, it certainly needs to be updated because it was, I think the last one was in 2013. We have a new director. We have new board members. We also don't do any type of euthanasia. We are a no-kill shelter, so we place animals. They have a very active adoption rate and facility. When I bring an animal in that isn't reclaimed, which is often the case, Cherryland gets the revenue from the adoption process.
And what do we get?
Zero.
Nothing.
Okay, so we take them we find a stray dog, we bring it in, they adopt it out, and I think they charge, what, $100? 150?
150 for a
Okay, so they
dog.
charge $150 for that dog that you brought in, and we get zero.
That's correct.
See, now, there's something wrong with that. Something wrong with that. Maybe. Maybe.
Well,
Depends on how long they have to care for them, et cetera.
That's part of it, and then also Cherryland, also, they neuter spade every animal that goes out of their facility. They also vaccinate rabies and try to vaccinate if it's possible. Then they turn over that paperwork to me, and because I haven't had the chance to follow up on 200 cases, I will tell you that in 2016, when I went through the numbers, there was not one single person that got a license in 2016.
And I think that's a key piece of the discussion.
Yeah.
Is to increase the licensing of animals. You know, we're seeing estimates that there's 20,400 dogs in Grand Traverse County, and we licensed 4,519 of them in 2016.
Well, let me be
That's a problem.
perfectly honest with you, too. I have 6 dogs. They were not licensed last year. Why do you think I didn't license my dogs?
Couldn't
There was
afford it?
nobody to enforce it.
Right.
Oh.
So that's $90 a year. My dogs are licensed, obviously. I'm the animal control officer, and I have to
I hope so. Cheryl's going to get her dog licensed right
Bingo.
away.
So, yeah,
I'd go
that,
downstairs and write you a receipt right now.
we could do a canvassing type process with the advisory committee. We
I
can.
think the point is that we need to encourage veterinarians and the Humane Society to, at the time that they're, HANS, AC Paws, all these organizations, to make sure as they're adopting out these dogs, they're also licensing them.
They do. I can assure you they do. That's one of their top priorities is licensing. Because if I find a dog, stray dog, a dog even at the shelter, the first order of business is check for the chip, check for the license. It tells me everything I need to know if I see your dog at large. I can call you. I have a license search on my phone, and you all are privy to that too. And you can check that license number. You have the owner, their address, and their phone number at your disposal right then and there. And you can call them up, and they can come and get their dog, or they can pick it up at Cherryland. It's a amazing thing. You've got all these people on social media losing their dogs all the time at large. Social media returns them, but they don't license their dogs because they know social media will help them. I propose a social media site for animal control that would actually bring those people to me so that we can actually follow up on the licensing and the revenue and make people responsible pet owners, which they are not responsible pet owners in Grand Traverse County, and I will tell you that. To actually tell you something, and I didn't know that until I stepped into these shoes back in October, to see it, there's no comparison. I got chills just telling you about it. There's no comparison to seeing an animal in a cage 24, 48, 72 hours, never being let out and trying to eat its way out. And to paw at the bottom of the plastic because nobody's let it out. I have this famous saying that I say, I don't know what I don't know. So I need the public, I need you, I need your neighbors, I need this community to call and to let us know so that we can help.
Well, and if I'm correct, you do call, but you're one person, and now you're one person and another part-time person for seasonal to respond to those calls. How many calls you get in a day, Deb?
Well, if you look at my call log, I would get probably between, and they've slowed this last couple of weeks, which is crazy to me, but I get up to 30 calls a day.
But tell us how long a call takes. When you take a call in, how long, because I've talked to Wendy about this before, it's not, hey, there's a stray dog on whatever, and oh yeah, I'll go get it. A call takes how long for you to listen and understand what's happening?
Well, it's a method to gather information, which is obviously the caller's name, address, phone number. Then you got to find out where the dog might be located. Is the dog confined, which is the best scenario, because I can't run around, trying to find dogs, right? So I really ask people to confine the dogs and I can go get them. That entails, obviously, getting out of the office, getting in the truck, finding wherever it might be in this 601 square miles, what township it's in. And then I have to locate an animal owner who owns the dog. That may take weeks before I find out even who owns the dog. Cherryland and I believe right now, we have a good, I call it a marriage. We work well together, we have deep respect for one another, and our mission is the welfare of our animals in this community. And to enhance that and make it better and to prioritize money for living, breathing creatures that God gave us to take care of. And we have failed. We have really failed and fallen short on that duty that I believe is, talk about fiduciary duty, that's a duty of us to do that. And,
is it only dogs?
No, it's not only dogs. I think we should do animals. Our ordinance, I believe, speaks to animals. Certainly the penal code speaks to animals, which is our state statute that we sort of hang our hats on. Our ordinance right now dovetails our dog law of 1919, which still is effective law, but our ordinance really covers just the dog law, not.
Well, she had
the penal
Chuckles
code.
or
Mr.
Wiggles. Mr. Wiggles, that was a horse.
He's in your packet.
Yeah, there's Mr. Wiggles, and occasionally there's, other animals besides horses.
Abuse or neglect cases of any kind of animal.
Okay. You're going to be called if there's any animal that's being abused.
One of the things
or
I'd like to
neglected.
just say,
At what
just
point
so-
does the sheriff's department jump in here? Because
They
I know
will,
the sheriff's
but-
department does something with you as well. What is their role in what you do?
And just before I answer that question, I just want to say that animal control in any community should really take care of the four-legged creatures that we have. So right now, it's put the sheriff's department in a very precarious situation because they are an enforcement arm in our community. However, and they've been phenomenal. I can't say enough about how they've backed me up and helped me in really sketchy situations over the months. But they are not trained in animal behavior, and I feel for those guys that go out without any capture equipment and no behavioral knowledge of some of the dogs that, especially aggressive dogs that they encounter. So, an animal control officer needs to be an arm of the sheriff's department just simply because it just makes complete sense. We have knowledge, training, and experience that a police officer has that knowledge, training, and experience in what he does. He deals with the human form. We deal with the four-legged form. And when we pool our resources together, we can really, I say, eliminate a lot of this duplicative work and duplicative reports that are coming through. We can work together and streamline neglect and abuse cases so that the serious ones get to the prosecutor's desk and the not-so-serious ones don't get to the prosecutor's office, so that they're not bogged down in cases that they don't need to be bogged down in. Does that answer it?
Dan?
Couple questions. Tom said that the city has an ordinance of their own. Is that true?
That is true.
And
That-
are they enforcing it? Do they have employees like you that are managing their cases?
They do not.
Do you think they should?
Well, they've got a couple of choices that they need to make, because I always say, what part of Grand Traverse County is not Traverse City, or what part of Traverse City is not Grand Traverse County? But
There are
because
city
they
limits, right?
they have their own ordinance, but they don't have the ability to enforce it. They don't have staffing that's structured for capture, and
But they could hire people.
they could hire people.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, I thought I heard you say that the first thing you do is you ask the citizen to contain the animal, so you can come and get them. So
If
you are
it's-
asking citizens to do this type of stuff, to put the animal in the house, put the animal in the car, versus they could get bit, they could this or that, right? So we are asking volunteers to do some of this work.
Only, one of the things that I always say, safety first. Absolutely safety first. So you can pretty much, if you open your car door, you know if the animal's going to be aggressive or not.
So they'll all jump in. They all want to go for a ride.
Exactly. All you have to say is,
Yeah.
want to go for a ride?
Yeah.
So obviously, there are circumstances where you've got,
Okay, well,
aggressive.
my point is that there's a heart in the community to do this, and you kind of relying on that.
I do rely on the community. The only thing is there are times when I am off duty and I can't facilitate that, and then I'm left with community members throwing up their hands and not knowing what to do. They don't obviously have keys to Cherry Land. They will call dispatch or the sheriff's department, and the sheriff's department cannot respond.
What percent of your calls come from the city as compared to the rest of the county?
I would say probably at least 15%, maybe more.
Okay, can I address the board on that?
Please.
So legally, under the dog law of 1919, and Deb and I, we've talked about this, What that law says is that if a city or township adopts its own animal control ordinance, then the county's animal control officer is without jurisdiction to go into that community and enforce our ordinance. So the city is either going to have to do one or two things. They're going to either have to start enforcing their ordinance one way or the other, or they just repeal their ordinance and allow the county to come in and respond to those calls. My understanding is Deb is responding to those calls. And I really take no position on that. I'm just telling you what the law is and what it says.
So what you're saying, that the city could just say, we'll repeal our law, then we'll have to do it, the county will have to do it?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Okay, well, I'm not sure what we were hoping to come out of this tonight. I guess I would put out a couple of suggestions to see, if we can
That's kind of what we're
move
looking for. What should we?
Maybe Ron wants to speak.
Yeah.
I want to just mention what Dan said, is that if the city drops their ordinance, then the county really doesn't have to do it because it's not a mandated service. I mean, to say that we have to, I guess would just be, am I right, Chris?
Well, what you have now is you have an animal control ordinance, okay?
Right.
So if you want to go the route that, look, this is not mandated service, then you'll have to repeal your ordinance. And by law, it then falls on the shoulders of the sheriff's department. Now, the sheriff, he has limited resources, limited time. It really up to him to figure out what's a priority or what's not.
Okay. By law, somebody's got to take care of.
So by
animal
law,
control?
once you adopted that animal control ordinance, and that animal control ordinance says we're going to have an animal control agency, by law, then yes, you should be responding to those complaints.
It's like hauler licenses. We have them, and we're insisting on
Let's not
them.
go there.
Well, it's similar, though, because
that's
you
a
have
whole
something
that's a whole nother
that's not,
animal.
that you're not enforcing, so why have it?
So again, if the board really feels like we don't want animal control, it's one thing to defund. It's really what you should be doing is eliminating your ordinance, if that's the direction you want to take.
And one comment I'd make, you'd mentioned you had 6 dogs, they weren't licensed, and they really didn't, in your eyes, need to be licensed because you were taking care of them. They were in your house, they were in control. There was no risk of them running around. And that's I'm only assuming, I mean, you being a dog, animal
I had one
control.
picked up and taken to the Cherryland Humane Society.
Well, shame on you.
I just want to say, if they're licensed, it means they're vaccinated for rabies. And there's a sheet in here that shows you how much staff time we take following up on rabies exposures.
Right.
So the licensing is the law, and it's very important.
Right.
We can't undo the law of the state.
Right, and I understand that. So when people bring their dogs on vacation, how many of those do you have any idea how many of those you actually go to? Like any?
Well, as soon as summer starts, we'll probably figure that out.
Right.
But so far, summer hasn't started.
Sonny?
Well, I don't think there's anyone in the room that doesn't feel that animal control in some form is important, because I think we all do. Whether we talk about animal control or any of the other services that we provide in Grand Traverse County, and we all recognize there's hundreds of them, the question always becomes, how much of that can you afford? I think the one thing that I see with animal control is there's a direct revenue stream that can be set up as an enterprise fund to fund animal control, and that is the licensure of animals. Now, my dear friend Dick Thomas would love to hear me say this. He promoted for 20 years that we have cat licenses. We've never explored that as a possibility, but we know there's as many cats as there are dogs in this community, and there's a lot of feral cats in the city. I see them all the time driving around. So, whether the idea of cat licenses is an option or not, but the point is we need to find a way to
to encourage people to license their dogs. And you know, for the public that's listening or whatever, if you don't license your dog, we cannot afford to increase animal control. Get your dogs licensed. You know, I'm looking at a number here that says if we had 100% dog license based on the projected number of dogs in Grand Traverse County, we'd have $512,000 a year.
Wow.
That'll hire a lot more than 1 or 2 part-time people. But when the bottom line is, when we're looking at our budget, we're looking at the services that we have to provide, the services that the people absolutely need in our community. What can we afford? And we have to prioritize. And animal control wasn't at the top of the priority list, and it probably will never get to the top of the priority list. But the fact is, we have a budget, I think the 2016 budget's around $130,000.
It's 133.
You know, so, you know, the budget's $133,000. We project a income of about $120,000, so we're still supplementing it along the way. But if we could just get a few more of these dogs done, licensed, all of a sudden we got $200,000. Big difference in hiring personnel. Once we've got the overhead, once we've got the truck, you know, we can hire some additional personnel, but we have to have the money.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
One other thing that might be considered is going from and revisiting the ordinance and going from citations to fines, which would generate more revenue as well, which you could put into a program like that.
Do fines just automatically go to the courts, or can they be routed back to a service?
It really, and I have to research this, okay? It's been a while since I looked at this, but when I was a city attorney, we wrote tickets under municipal civil infractions. If it's municipal civil infraction, then the money, I may be wrong about this because it's been a while, but the money should be coming back to the county if we had a municipal civil infraction bureau. All right, so there's a system to set it up so that you create this bureau that handles the fines and costs associated with that, so that you're collecting the money versus it going to the courts in the state.
The library.
Which is why, again, I would like to suggest that we ask Chris to look at drafting an ordinance for us to consider for a civil infraction for not licensing your dog. I would also like to ask that we consider placing animal control back under the purview of the Sheriff's Department. I'm very concerned about the officers not being properly trained, not having access to lean, not being able to carry any protection. It scares the heck. I mean, look at this woman. She's going to go out into who knows where to try and see if somebody's got a pit bull, and she can't go on lean to see if that person's got wants and warrants before she goes out there. That's insane. That is a lawsuit waiting to happen. Not good policy, okay? So I think we should put it back under the Sheriff's Department, get him the money he needs to run it, okay? I think the Citizens Advisory Committee is an awesome idea. They wouldn't have any authority other than to meet and report back to us with ideas of ways to generate income, ways to communicate with citizens, ways to track down lost animals, whatever. But why couldn't we put that together? Why can't we do this? It's not going to cost us anything right now, and it will move the needle forward to help these vulnerable creatures.
I agree. I would advocate for a friends group, similar to what our other mandated service that we have, or a non-mandated service that we have, which is the pool. And they have a friends group who advocates for them, and for keeping the pool open, fundraising for the needs of the Easling pool, and helping it out. And so I would welcome a friends group of that nature to advocate for better funding, for more licensure for dogs, things like that, and get the word out. Dan?
This is a funny board, because when I suggested that we have an advisory group to hire the new administrator, no one was interested. And now we have to have one for this, and...
I think we all wanted to have a hand in the administrator one.
Well, I think my point is that I don't know if we can get some advice, but I don't know if I want to have an official group mandating what we do.
I don't think we would give them any mandating authority whatsoever. They would simply go out and gather information.
Well, why wasn't that applicable to our administrator?
I don't know, Dan. I can't remember.
Okay.
I'm getting old.
All right. I just want to make my point.
My point, and I do have one.
Yeah. Well, that's my point, is that it was a bother before, and now it's a necessity now. Why don't we have...
Oh, you mean the blue ribbon panel? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that was a citizen advisory board, and no one wanted it. This is not the same thing, a blue ribbon panel? This is not?
I don't think so. We're not looking for blue ribbon anybody. These are just people who love animals. They have no pedigree that I know of. They're simply people.
That's not my point. My point is...
But that was the point of the blue ribbon panel.
The point of the blue ribbon panel was to look into our communities for people to help us with a problem we have.
But they had to have a pedigree.
Sonny has a comment.
I've heard the comment a number of times about putting animal control under the sheriff's department. And I'm sure the undersheriff and the sheriff will have some comment in regard to that.
I was going to ask them if they have any.
You know, over the years, I've said a multitude of times that whether the animal control is under the sheriff's department or the health department doesn't matter to me terribly. The health department is responsible anytime someone get bit. They're statutorily responsible for the follow-ups for that.
Right. Yes, on the human side.
But the important thing here is, to me, I do not want to put our deputies in a position where they're trying to pick up stray dogs and putting them in the back of a patrol car or any of those kind of issues. It's certainly not, I don't want to put a stray dog in the back of a patrol car and have them making a mess back there, and then a half an hour later, I've got to put a lady and an infant in the back seat because they were involved in a traffic accident. I don't want to do that. So, you know, I think we have the ability, and we even have the history, you know, in a number of communities locally where under the sheriff's department there was an animal control officer, you know, but they had their own vehicle, they had their own responsibilities. You know, all of this comes with a price tag. Mm-hmm. You know, and whether we leave it the way it is, whether we change it, the key piece of this is what is it going to cost? You know, the sheriff told me if I give him $500,000, he's sure he could get it taken care of.
He told me 300.
No. Well,
every time you talk to him, the price goes up.
Pretty much. So, you know, I guess I'm more than willing to have a discussion about the administrative part of animal control being under the sheriff's department. But I cannot have that conversation without having the conversation with the sheriff and the undersheriff.
Tom, did you have a comment? And then I think Deb has something else to say about that.
Yeah, while it's still under the control of the health department, I'd really like to see a campaign to get more people to get their pets vaccinated, number one. And maybe if people aren't getting their pets vaccinated or they're not taking that spring checkup, I know myself, it's kind of expensive, and I broke it into 2 visits because I couldn't afford it all at one time. That maybe there's some assistance.
So, Tom, I
That maybe there's some assistance for people who can't afford to get that because they can't get the license unless they get that. And you know, some people might be just cost. It's the cost that's keeping them from doing anything. But as far as, you know, where they pick up their food or where they kennel their animal, or, you know, whether they get their veterinary care, I would say that it's obvious when I go to my vet that they're selling the licenses. It's right there by the counter. But maybe some of the vets who aren't selling them need to post a sign that says it's very important. And this is what the program's depending on, is the licensing of the pets. But if they're not getting the license because they can't afford the vet care, that's another issue we haven't brought up.
Wendy?
So the license is essential. I mean, I put together a table that shows you how much money potential revenue we could get. Mm-hmm. We don't have the staffing to implement those things right now. We don't have, so I'd like to see that too, but how do we get there?
That's why I suggest a Friends Advocacy group to
Yeah, but
do that.
But the media can also help broadcast it as a public service announcement, that it does make a difference and that the program's counting on the licensing of the pets. But again, I go back to the cost of even visiting the vet. It's difficult for some people, and maybe that's one of the reasons they're not getting to the last step of getting the license.
I think if we could have an online licensing, I don't know if Heidi's investigated that or not. Sorry,
Hold on
Heidi.
one second.
But online, I think, would be a way that it would make it easier for people as well.
Okay,
So she said that they need new software capabilities.
okay. Dan has a question, and then,
I just wanted to just
go
kind of
ahead.
add some.
And then Dan.
Yep, sorry.
It's okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something to that. I understand you're perfectly right about the vet's office, and you pay your vet bill, and part of that also is that if you want to get your dog license, you cannot use like your credit card or debit card. You know, I don't know, a lot of people don't carry those around. I know I don't. I'm like, I carry a debit card or a credit card. I don't even hardly ever carry cash. So you have to write a check out to the...
Oh, it's separate.
Yeah, it's
No,
completely
I did-
separate, and you have to
no.
write a check to Grand Traverse County Treasurer for the dog license.
Why?
So it's, we have these
Why?
built-in...
Heidi says no.
Okay.
Good.
I stand correct. That's at least the way it works at my vet.
Okay.
That's the way it works at my vet, which is, yeah.
Oh, so each vet might have a different way.
They might have a
Okay.
different system, so I think that's part of it too, is getting everybody on board doing the same thing. And then I talked with Oakland County about how they handle licenses. They have an online system, and they actually said that their licenses went up dramatically once they implemented that. So everybody's just so used to paying with their phone or, you know, paying online that I think it would, if we did that, I can almost guarantee that the revenues would go up on that end for licenses. So
Okay.
just something I wanted to add in there.
Dan, you had another question?
I have a question for administration. Do you, Tom and Jen, I've got a question for you guys. What are your comments on this? What, do you have some suggestions?
Well, I was just talking, I was asking the question myself, Commissioner, if we could possibly send renewal forms or forms out with tax bills as an option. I don't know if we could do that or not, but that might be something else that puts it right in front of people as well, as another alternative. So we were brainstorming on ways that we could get in front of people with that. And, you know, your tax bill you don't ignore, so if you have your dog license renewal, it kind of hits you right between the eyes. It might be a way of doing that.
Heidi has a comment on that.
Actually, in our office, that's one of our monthly duties. When the license is expiring, we send them a renewal notice, and then if they haven't renewed it in 30 to 60 days, we'll send them another renewal
Nice.
notice. So we already are doing that.
being done. Okay.
That's,
Right.
Yeah, that's only the ones that already have the dog licenses.
yeah, I was thinking of the impact of your tax bill, and then having that in the same thing might give it a little more sense of urgency.
Right. So to Sunny's point about the Sheriff's Department, does anybody from the Sheriff's Department want to comment at all on their involvement? No one's jumping up,
The sheriff is.
except the
Here he
sheriff. Good man.
Nate's back here smiling.
comes. He doesn't need to say a word. Here comes the big cheese.
That's what Tom gets paid the big bucks for. Nate will just sit back there and smile.
Good evening, Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff. So my understanding is that some on this board would like us to take an operation that is underfunded, understaffed, undermanaged, and make a miracle out of it. That's not going to happen.
Okay.
There you go.
I've just taken a department that's been understaffed, underfunded, and under everything, and made it something. I have worked diligently, tirelessly, and all alone to resurrect a dying program for these dying animals. I've put my life at risk every day. I've gone out with a bulletproof vest on. I have a CPL license that I cannot carry. I am not allowed to carry a taser, a baton, or pepper spray that is going to be effective against a pit bull that was rushing the officer on May 19th. So I don't know why I am doing what I'm doing, and it's only, and I will stand here and tell you, only for the love of the animals in this community, because I am not being paid for it. And what I have done has been way, way, way beyond the call of duty. And I need some help, and unless I get it, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen to the animals. I believe the Sheriff's Department needs the money. I will advocate for the Sheriff's Department because I believe that they have a valid beef with what's going on. We need to fix it. I believe I'm the person to help fix it. And I just want you guys to just rally around us. Let's do a group hug. I don't know what we need to do, but we need to save these animals, and we need to become what we are. Are we the second, best destination, vacation destination in the country or the world or whatever? I wouldn't want to come here and bring my animals because God forbid that they run out of their car and get hit or whatever. So we need to make our animal control and make people prioritize. And I think we could have the best animal control program in the entire state. We have 83 counties that are doing way better than we are. We are by far below the bottom of the barrel. And when you have to, please, I encourage any of you to take a ride in my vehicle with me and see how humbling that experience is. Because it is the worst vehicle I've ever driven in my entire life, and I wouldn't give it to a 16-year-old because they wouldn't drive it. So there you have it.
Dan?
That reminds me about that joke that they had in today's paper. I think it was Garfield, and they're asking Odie, what happens if you catch the car? And then what happens? And then he feigns he's going to be driving the car. Mm-hmm. That's highly illegal. What about an ad hoc committee of the board?
To further,
To come up with some suggestions.
I'm not opposed to that at all.
I'd be willing to volunteer.
Okay.
I know you would.
Tom?
It's with you, you bet.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can help you out of the box here a little bit. Why don't you let staff get together and list a number of options that could be done? Example, setting up so we go from citations to revenue and get kind of a shopping list of things that could happen, then the ad hoc committee. But I'll tell you what needs to take place. The attitude needs to shift from why it won't work as to why it could work if we work together. Mm-hmm. And I see some cultural resistance in the organization, and not just the sheriffs, but others. Maybe if we sit down and we look at some things that could be done, like a little shopping list, and present that in a memo to you, and then off of that, you might say, well, let's do an ad hoc committee and let's kind of push it forward, some of these, pick and choose. I'd be happy to do that if that would help.
But we're still going to need an ad hoc committee.
We can do an ad hoc committee and have you guys report to them, and okay, so far the ad hoc committee is Dan and Cheryl, full of love for each other over there, and is there anybody else who would like to be, we need one more? Bob. Because I put you and Sonny on an ad hoc last week because you weren't here.
I watched it on TV.
So, you're on an ad hoc for Building Authority or something. Talk to Chris Kramer.
Members of the Building Authority.
Bob.
I didn't tell you that yet.
I loved it.
So, in the spirit of how we do things, if you don't show up, you're on an ad hoc. So, Bob and Cheryl and Dan.
Cool.
May I ask?
Yes.
Would you like us then to be a part of the committee to help you, or do you want to, how do you want us?
Put your thing together. Put your thing together, and
Then
that'll be a
report to the
springboard
three of
for
them.
us
To
to
you
be.
three, okay.
Yep.
Okay?
Good, all right.
That'd be
And
great.
then get it solid and
Give you some
bring it back
things
to
to
the
start
board.
working off of.
That'd be
We'd
awesome.
be happy to do that.
That'd be awesome.
And I
Okay.
assume the ad hoc committee will take input from our current animal control
Absolutely,
personnel.
with everybody.
And the health department and from the sheriff.
Is
But
it?
we'll talk to everybody to get as many ideas as we can from different points of view, and then we'll share those, and then I think you'll get to the point of picking and choosing, but you're also going to get to the point of saying, we need A, B, and C to collaborate and want to work with us on that. And then I think you can get something done.
Tom?
I was hopeful that he would work on the ordinance in the meantime.
Well, I thought, that was one of the
That's
things
part-
we'd
kind of part of it,
recommend
yeah.
is, let's go from citation to revenue, what do we have to do to do it? And then you'd have to pass that, of course, is one of the action steps that you could do.
What I'd like to do is do a comprehensive rewrite of the ordinance so that it addresses, for example, the Municipal Civil Infraction Bureau
Yeah.
would address different violations more comprehensive than what it currently is.
Probably just a matter of rewriting our current animal control ordinance to include the penal portion.
Right. And attorneys are good plagiarists, so,
Find
you
one
know, I'll
that's already
see.
been
It's the
done.
sincerest form of flattery.
It is. It is. So I will find what I think is the best out there, and we use that as a model.
Okay, Tom?
Can we send a message to the city and ask them what their plans are to,
See, I'm afraid if we do that, they'll cancel their ordinance, we'll really be in trouble.
well,
What
would
their
clarify,
intentions
but-
are,
but
what their
the-
intentions are.
How can we work together?
the other question would be a little more history for the ad hoc or now from the gentleman that worked for animal control before, because, you know, like, how was it running efficiently before when you were the employee? You don't have to comment now, but, you know, the ad hoc could probably use that information, so.
I bet he has some advice.
I bet he does.
Does do the Friends of Animal Control need our blessing in order to exist? Or they can
No.
simply become their own entity, and we would be thrilled to hear what they have to say?
Yeah, we have to step up to the podium if you want to. The people at home would like to hear what you have to say, so that's the only way they'll hear it.
I was just wondering, when you call it a Friends of group, do you want a 501c3, or do you just want like
Well-
a group of 20 people, or what were you
How about,
proposing?
I was thinking, get your volunteers together and you have a presence on the internet with your magazine and advocate for licensing animals. And, you know, if you want to become a 501c3 and fundraise and all that, that's up to you.
I'm just asking if that's a requirement.
No, you
Okay.
can go out and advocate and write articles about,
Jennifer,
get your dogs and animals licensed.
So if a group was put together, then we would just get on your agenda to propose the information, or would we work with the ad hoc committee?
You
you could do either one.
You
Okay.
don't need approval from us to advocate
You can
that
come
people
anytime you
license their
want.
dogs.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
but that would be
Thank you.
awesome. Anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay,
Animals, thank you.
okay. I'm glad. That was, I think, I lost my thing here, hold on, lost my agenda. I think that was it.
Second public comment.
Yes, we need to move to, I just
Help her out.
had update, discussion, yes, second public comment. If there's anyone that hasn't talked, well, I'll let you talk again, go for it. Why not?
Ed Hickey, 321 West 12th Street, Traverse City, Michigan. I could have answered a lot of your questions. You're talking about making the citations civil infractions. That was already done at one time, and that's what they are right now.
No, I'm talking about something different. It's a Civil Infraction Bureau. So
Right,
that's-
well, there might be the
that's
Bureau,
citation.
could be the difference, but they are civil infractions right now. We do have that in our orders.
But of course, it's not enforced.
Right.
Well, right, which brings me to another question, or answer, is animal control is a law enforcement department. Probably 20% of their business is done with animals. The rest is mediating between neighbors and solving problems. It's really law enforcement. It really should be under the Sheriff's Department. I don't see why I understand the money's not here, and regardless of what amount of money you have, it still should be under the Sheriff's Department. He may not be able to run it like he wants efficiently, but what's the difference between the Health Department trying to run something with, $80,000, or the Sheriff's Department running with $80,000? You can only do so much with that $80,000. It's still law enforcement. The connection is better with the Sheriff's Department. It doesn't belong with the Health Department, believe me. It's a bad fix. We were there, we saw the difference. It really needs to be more communication with the Sheriff's Department. So, in my opinion, That's where it should be. I understand there's no money for it. It's a sloppy run business because there's no money, but he can run it sloppy just like Wendy can. It's just that easy.
So when was it really running optimally? You know, how far back do we have to go to find that
Before this
point?
administrator.
Okay.
There was more money. The administrators were with you on it. We worked with them quite closely. We had a great relationship with the sheriff's department, the prosecutor's department. It all seemed to go downhill at a certain particular time. I'm not going to want to get into a whole lot of blame on anything.
And about the number of full-time and part-time?
Well, when I started, we had 3 full-time, plus we had a jail trustee who basically ran the shelter. He cleaned the shelter, he took calls, he dispatched the officers, he took money in, he released dogs, took dogs in.
He was there for the long term then.
It was so basically we had 4 people, and one was a jail trustee.
So you said 3 full-time?
3 full-time.
And what about the weekend coverage? How did you do that?
We had 3 full-time people, and that was the difference. We were able to shift, because to have one person on a day is pretty poor. It's like what's going on now. So under a 2-man department, if you have a person off, I mean, you have to give them 2 days off. Those 2 days he's off means the other person is a single department itself. And so basically, we were only going to have a 2-man department if we did shifts for 2 days. So it really wasn't practical unless you have 3, where you can rotate. That's the difference. You're probably not going to have the money for 3, but if you really want to run the department where it rotates and you got 7-day coverage, that's what you have to have.
And you covered the city?
Absolutely. The ordinance, I kind of differ with the prosecutor on that. If you look at the Grand Traverse County ordinance, it's a mirror copy of the state. Mirror copy. There's nothing different in the county as there was in the state. The city does have a code enforcer who can enforce all those laws, the dog laws, but it would be kind of ridiculous for the county health department or the county animal control department to say, we're not going to step into the city if there's a problem, because legally we don't have to do that. It's a county. You're not asking, Blair Township or Whitewater or anybody else to add money, but you're going to be asking the city. I live in the city. I pay taxes. I pay county taxes. Why does my county taxes stop at the city line? It shouldn't.
Yeah, well, I live near you, so I'm doing the same thing. And I have questions,
Yeah.
Like in my neighborhood, I see a lot of dogs running loose, and I recognize most of them. I know more of the dogs' names than I do my neighbors.
Yeah.
So I just take them back to where they belong.
That's sad, Tom.
And it's true, though.
Just say
I've
it.
thought about that, actually, So when I walk by someone's house, I know the dog's name.
Okay.
But, it seems to be the main problem in my area is dog barking, people just leaving their dogs out endlessly, and they don't seem to hear the dog barks that everybody else hears, but...
Well, the city actually is always answered to the barking dogs under the noise ordinance.
So the code enforcement officer might actually get the call?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Or a city officer will do a disturbing the peace barking dog.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully any of that historical stuff, which I think is invaluable, really, because I don't know all that.
I went through a lot of all the stuff you guys are talking about.
Is available to the ad hoc and to the friends, and,
Sure.
that gets around, so.
That's why I'm here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else like to make public? Yes, sir.
Hello. Get that right. My name is Maxwell Wolf. I live at 858 Center Street. I'm a county resident and a city resident. Well, I was very concerned about Commissioner Follett's statement earlier that there's been a significant increase in dog bites. And, why is that? If people aren't licensing their dogs, well, it's because there's no enforcement. There's no enforcement of the dogs running loose, of confinement and leash laws and things like that. And so now we're having increasing bites. And I'm very concerned about, public health and safety. is that not a mandated thing? And I'll probably follow up with an email because I'm not very good at public speaking, but recently we had a sheriff's deputy who was attacked by a dog. And I mean, this person has a taser, a firearm, and that's what it took to stop the dog attack. How does the average person protect themselves from a dog attack? Now, I've been attacked by dogs when I'm just walking around. They're loose dogs. The owner isn't around anywhere. I was bit on the leg. And I can't go for a walk or ride my bike anymore. And this is all year round. This isn't just, in the summer. So I'm very concerned about the health and safety of people. I think it's really only a matter of time before somebody, some kid is killed or something like that because there's vicious dogs in our community that aren't being controlled. So I'm also wondering, can't we do something about the vicious dogs too? If these dogs are already biting people, maybe they should be removed from our community. I know there was one more thing, but I didn't write it down. Oh yeah, the fine that Commissioner Follett suggested, I think the fines need to be much higher for dogs running at large. I mean, really get people's attention with these fines, because that way, maybe there'll be something done. People will start putting their dog on a leash, keep it behind a fence, something like that. So I'll follow up with an email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Once, twice. Okay.
There's in the back there.
Yeah. Quick follow-up. Okay, I'll let it go.
First, I just want to talk about a couple of comments.
Could you repeat your name?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm Corinne Klump, out of Traverse City. So regarding the seasonality, I think that it's really important to consider how important it is to keep the winter months in our minds. That's really when these animals are at the most risk for being out in the cold and not having shelter. And B, I don't have any of the data, but I mean, I'm not sure how much any activity increases with the tourism, but our weather in the winter months, I think to say seasonality that summer would be an increase of support. I just would like us to look at that when we're talking about staffing up or down. Number two, I just wanted to talk to the point of the fee at the Humane Society. I volunteered there for years and years. It's $150. Most of those dogs are there at least 2 weeks. When you're talking about shelter, you're talking about food, you're talking about that they're now being spayed or neutered before they left, which is extremely important for everything that we're talking about. And then number two, I hope that we can be part of or get the advocacy group going, because animal abuse is a huge important factor on top, and it just snowballs with that. And licensing, we can't get licensing to increase without the enforcement to do it. You can't just put a newspaper article out and think that people are going to do it. If they don't have the commitment from you, our government saying that this is what this money and this funding is going to do, and that it's going to do something positive, nobody is going to pay it. I'm a huge animal lover, and I continued to pay my fee because I was hoping that it would make a comeback, and I was going to fight for it. But the community at large is not going to do that unless there is commitment from our government officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Darcy Pickren, 916 Pine Street. I live in the city. I could generate revenue for the animal control in my neighborhood due to violation of ordinances. If I were to call the sheriff's department every time I see a stray dog, they wouldn't probably want me to call them any longer. Maybe we could have people in our neighborhoods, I'm in Central Neighborhood, one person, could help the sheriff's department by rounding up some of these dogs that are loose. But I think that if this is turned over to the sheriff's department, there is a revenue stream for violating and having citations. There's fees and costs with the court and all that, and that could be even higher than the licensing fees for that come in on an annual basis. So anyway, I really believe that the Sheriff's Department needs to take a long, strong look at this. They are the ones that are going to be able to enforce the laws, and then deputize the animal control officers so that they can be protected while they're on patrol. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Once, twice, okay.
I'm Angela Loganhoff, 4130 Fieldster Drive in Traverse City. My concerns, I've worked with rescue organizations with horses. My concern is the recidivism of folks who are abusing animals and they're not facing any fines. And then that money is then put onto private citizens to rehab these animals. So I just think that prosecution is huge when it comes to folks who have done terrible things to their animals. So I don't feel like that's being looked at. I mean, how many times can someone starve an animal to death and walk away from that and then the next year own another set of animals that they starved to death? You know, I own an animal myself that's came pretty close to not being here. And it's very sad in our community. You know, I feel like, you know, we enforce if someone went in and stole a bottle of pop, they would be probably in jail, you know, for stealing from a store. But somebody can actually commit a horrendous crime and walk away from that without any penalty. So that's where.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for everybody that came to speak and everybody that prepared to let us know what's going on. Thank you to Commissioner Gorfulet for bringing it to our attention. And with that, we are adjourned.
Got it. Did a nice job.